Hello, children. We have seen how the writer developed fear of water, and this is going to be the last part, the most important part. How did he conquer fear of water? So, we are going to see the conquest of fear. If you have fear of anything, you can always conquer that. You can always overcome that. How to overcome that? That you have to plan. You have to have a strategy. Then definitely you will be able to overcome that fear. And this last part is the most important part of this lesson and a very interesting part of this lesson. So let's go ahead with the last part of deep water conquest of fear. I used every way I knew to overcome this fear, but it held me firmly in its grip. So what William tries to do, he tries to ward off his fear, and he tries many ways, but he was not able to get rid of that fear. So finally, one October, I decided to get an instructor and learn to swim. So what he has done finally, he has hired an instructor and he has decided to learn swimming. I went to a pool and practiced 5 days a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around me. So what the instructor does, he puts a belt around him. The writer practices almost every day. A rope attached to the belt went through a pulley that ran on an overhead cable. So there was overhead rope and there was a pulley. So the belt was attached to that rope. He held on to the end of the rope and we went back and forth across the pool. So what here the writer is narrating, he tells us the learning process, what is being done. The instructor has put a belt attached to a thick rope and that belt was attached to whom? To the William's vest. The rope went through an overhead pulley and it was held by the instructor. It ensured that in case of the drowning of William, the instructor could pull him out. So for that, the rope was attached to the pulley. On each trip across the pool, a bit of the panic seized me. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope, I went under the water. Some of the old terror returned and my legs froze. So the old terror, that fear that he had developed, that was returning again and again, and he was feeling that as if his legs are frozen. That means his legs are totally paralyzed. He was not able to make any movement. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. So it has taken nearly 3 months when the terror, that fear started slackening, started getting reduced. Then he taught me to put my face under water. So how to put face under water? That is under water, swimming and exhale, and to raise my nose and inhale. So he was getting ready for him to swim underwater too. So therefore, at the beginning, how one can do it, put the face under water and then exhale. I repeated the exercise hundreds of times. Bit by bit, I shed part of the panic. I could get rid of that panic, that fear that seized me when my head went underwater. So whatever the panic that he had developed, that he was able to get rid of it, but it was going part by part. It was going very, very slowly. Remember, he was haunted by fear for a long period, and to get rid of that, it was not so easy. And therefore, he had hired an instructor, and because of the regular practice, somehow, slowly, he started getting rid of that. Next, he held me at the side of the pool and had me kick with my legs. For weeks I did just that. At first, my legs refused to work, but they gradually relaxed and finally I could command them. So the next very important part, kicking with the legs. So what the uh, learner has done, what William has done is he has caught hold of the bars of the pool, swimming pool, which are there at the side of the pool, and he started kicking with his legs. So he was holding the side of the pool or bars of the side of the pool and he started kicking the legs. So for weeks he went on doing that. At first his legs refused to work. So at first legs were frozen. They were not moving. But over the period they started moving, but they gradually relaxed and finally I could command. So finally what has happened? He could order his legs to kick in the desired way. So he was able to kick with the help of the legs. So thus piece by piece he built a swimmer. And when he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. In April, he said, now you can swim, dive off and swim the length of the pool, crawl, stroke. So what has happened now here? Now the instructor, he is making him a swimmer now. So finally the instructor has made a swimmer out of William, and that he has made it in phases. So he has perfected piece by piece. So all that integrated whole he has put now together integrated whole. So when William had perfected each phase, he compiled them and he has put it into integrated whole. And in the month of April, the instructor told William that now he could swim. He asked him to dive into the pool and swim the length of the pool in a particular style called the crawl stroke. So he asked him to crawl the entire length of the pool. I did, the instructor was finished. That means the instructor's job was over and I did. So he was able to swim the length of the pool. So his classes were over. The instructor was finished. His training was over, but I was not finished. But the fear, probably he felt that probably there may be fear, suddenly it may come back anytime. I still wondered if I would be terror stricken, whether I would be attacked by the terror when I was alone in the pool. If I am alone, then what will happen? Suddenly I will be terrified. What should I do for that? I tried it. I swam the length up and down. Tiny vestiges remains. So small vestiges remains of the old terror would return. But now I could frown. So he could mock, ridicule that and say to that terror, trying to scare me? Ah, well, so he was talking to himself now. Well, here is to you. Look. And off I would go for another length of the pool. So he was challenging himself, and again he was going for that. So what William had not overcome the fear. That's what it shows. So little bit fear, whatever that was there, he was trying to get rid of that fear, and he was challenging himself. So he faced the terror, but now he was facing the terror with confidence. So again and again, when the terror is to come, he was swimming again, once again, the entire length of the pool. So this went on until July. Till the month of July, this went on. So William was swimming like this, little bit traces of that fear was coming, and it went on like that. So again he was challenging, then he was going for the entire length of the pool. But I was still not satisfied. But still he was not very happy with what had happened. I was not sure that all the terror had left. So he was not sure. Probably he was feeling that little bit terror, that fear that was there. And therefore he wanted to get rid of that completely. He says the training was over, but now he was checking himself whether that fear would once again come back to him. So I went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire. dived off a dock at Trix Island, and swam 2 miles across the lake to Stamp Act Island. I swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke, and backstroke. Only once did the terror return. So what does he do? Now he wants to check himself whether really he has been able to get rid of that fear. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire. Then what does he do there? He dives into the from Trix Island and swam for 2 miles up to Stamp Act Island. He swam in different styles of swimming. What are those different styles of swimming? Crawling, breaststroke, then side stroke, backstroke. So different styles he does when he was swimming all alone there. And there in that particular lake, only once did the terror return. Only once it has happened that the fear that he had developed, that once again it has come back. When I was in the middle of the lake, I put my face under and saw nothing but bottomless water. And he was there in the middle of the lake, and suddenly that terror had come. And he put his face under water and saw nothing but only bottomless water. The old sensation returned in miniature, but that sensation, that fear, that has come back. But that fear was how much? That was very, very little. I laughed and said, "Well, Mr. Terror, what do you think you can do to me?" It fled and I swam on. So the terror returned only once, when he was there in the middle of the lake. When he put his hand under water, he saw water all around, and it was bottomless water. And therefore, suddenly he had developed the fear. But what does he do this time? William just laughed at that. And just he says, what does he say? "Well, Mr. Terror," he addresses. He says, "What do you think? You will harm me? You can't harm me." And when he said like that, what happened? That terror vanished and he went on swimming. Yet I had residual doubts. Here, the writer has made a lot of efforts. He has hired the instructor and he has been able to swim in the lake. So there was no problem at all. But still he had little bit doubts. So whatever the leftover doubts were there, that he wanted to get rid of that. So he wanted to check all that. And therefore what does he do? At my first opportunity, I hurried west. So he went in the direction of the west. Went up the Teton to Conrad Meadows, up the Conrad Creek Trail to Med Glacier, and camped in the high meadow by the side of Warm Lake. So he goes to the Warm Lake. The next morning I stepped, dived into the lake, and swam across to the other shore and back. So here the instructor had made a great swimmer. He could swim across the lake just as Doe Copron used to do. I shouted with joy, and Gilbert Pick returned the echo. I had conquered my fear of water. So what has happened? That mountain peak has reverberated. It has returned that echo, that he was shouting with joy that he has been able to conquer the fear of water. I had conquered my fear of water. So with joy, he goes on shouting at that, and there was that echo that was reverberating. So he had overcome the fear and he was quite sure that he was able to swim well. So there was no fear at all. The experience had a deep meaning for me, as only those who have known stark terror and conquered it can appreciate. This experience that he had great importance in his life. So it had a deep meaning. What was the importance of that? And he says that only those who have been in that particular situation, only those who have been experienced though that kind of fear, only they will know the real significance of that, that how one would feel that. Who have known stark terror, who have known absolute terror, complete terror, and those who have been able to conquer that only those people were able to appreciate it or understand it. He says, in death there is a peace. Death, when you are very near death, when you are experiencing death, it is all peaceful. You need not be afraid of it. There is terror only in the fear of death, as Roosevelt knew. Who was Roosevelt? Roosevelt was the President of America. What did he say? He said, all we have to fear is fear itself. We have to be afraid of the fear. And if you don't think about fear, then definitely that fear will not be there. That existence of the fear will not be there. You are afraid because you feel afraid. So once you don't think about that fear, there won't be any fear anymore. Because I had experienced both the sensation of dying and the terror that fear of it can produce, the will to live somehow grew in intensity. Willingness to live, the determination to live, the feeling of great desire to live, that grew intensely because he had experienced near death situation. At last I felt released. So he felt released of fear, free to walk the trails and climb the peaks. So free to walk anywhere, any path, and climb the peaks of any mountain, to brush aside fear, to get rid of any kind of fear. So let's see these questions. Why was Douglas determined to get over his fear of water? So why he wanted to get rid of fear of water? Because it ruined his joys of boating, fishing and swimming. Then how did the instructor build a swimmer out of Douglas? So you have to write the kind of efforts that the instructor made. He had put a belt around him, then the rope was attached to the belt, went through a pulley, and then he was swimming back and forth across the pool hour after hour. So how his training went on. So how did Douglas make sure that he conquered the old terror? So Douglas was made a swimmer, but what he did, he went to the lake Wentworth, died off there, and then he swam across that and he tried to get rid of that old terror, that old fear. With this, we come to the end of this chapter, Deep Water. So let us recapitulate what we have learned so far. William Douglas is determined to get over the fear. And what does he do to get rid of the fear? He engages a coach. So Douglas was determined to banish the lingering aquaphobia from his mind. So in October, he engaged a swimming coach to teach him swimming. The coach assembled a rope, so he tied a rope and pulley that was hooked to preempt any chance of Douglas drowning. So William continued his practice lessons despite occasional odds. Day after day, Douglas persisted with his swimming practices under the watchful eye of his trainer. He made progress after each session. He gained in confidence as his fear of water receded over the period. But the progress was not easy. It was punctuated by instances of panic and failures. After 3 months and 100 and so many times practices, Douglas finally felt a sense of accomplishment. He was no longer fettered by the fear of water. He learned how to excel when his head was under water and inhale when it was above water. Then came the feet strengthening exercises. The coach made him sit on the edge of the pool, throw his leg up and down. After a few days, he developed fine command over his legs. By April, the coach's perseverance and Douglas' zeal paid off. He had become a skilled swimmer. The coach let him swim back and forth in the pool with no assistance. William swam along the length of the pool to gather confidence. Despite such success, the old horror, the old fear, memories would creep into his mind each time he delved into water, each time he dived into water. However, Douglas simply cast them off with disdain. He was on the top. He swam back and forth in the pool repeatedly as if to prove his point. Such defiant swimming continued till July. He goes to Triggs Island to practice under natural conditions. Douglas was still not satisfied. He went to Wentworth in New Hampshire. He died of a dock at Triggs Island. He swam in styles freely and confidently. He stared the old terror in its eyes by putting his eyes under water and looking at the bottom. It was a daring feat for a man who had once nearly drowned in a pool. Like this, Douglas tested his swimming powers in various locations. Each time he emerged triumphant. At last, he masters the art of swimming. The relentless pursuit to learn swimming and to banish fear not only bore fruit but also taught him some valuable lessons in life. He realized how true was President Roosevelt when he said, "All we have to fear is fear itself." Douglas had survived a near death situation once and later learned to dispel the long shadow the horror had cast on his psyche. The conquest emboldened him to defy fear and venture on to nerve-wracking feats. He emerged a much stronger man from the childhood ordeal simply because he chose to confront dread, fear through frontal assault. This we have come to the end of this chapter. The chapter tells us how one develops fear and how one can conquer the fear. So the chapter is dealing with development of fear and conquest of fear. It teaches us a great lesson in life. Thank you.